Hey, what's going on, cash flow hackers? It's Chris from Life 180, and today I got my buddy Pete Foldis here talking about how money is a tool to reach the life that matters for us, not the destination. I think, unfortunately, sometimes think about the ultimate goal of reaching a certain amount of net worth, or a certain amount of assets, or having different types of assets in a certain portfolio, and that is ultimately the destination that they think that they're trying to reach. But ultimately, that's not it at all, and we're going to dive into it. So let's go. All right, Pete, what is up, man? It's good to see you.
Great to see you. Great to be here.
Yeah, man. So let's do this. There was some of the things I've been doing a lot of research on recently is the mindset and the philosophy, and just kind of the energetic output that we have as human beings in life, and where we put our energy and where we focus our attention. And I think I've said it a lot. I know you and I share a lot of these beliefs that the reason people struggle with their money is because their money is not in alignment with their values and their beliefs. And in that, I think one of the key areas in this is that people kind of have this misunderstanding about what money is and what the objective of money is in our life. And a lot of people, and I think it's kind of trained by traditional financial planning. Common thought is that we need to hit our number. We need, $1 million. We need $4 million. We need, whatever that number is, to be able to reverse engineer when we hit retirement, to be able to save and accumulate and hopefully hit this destination of, say, $4 million or $5 million, whatever the number is, to be able to have enough income to be able to maintain our standard of living. And it's like, from that perspective, I just think it's kind of a broken mindset. And I just believe that when you go down that path and you start thinking about money as a destination, or having a certain amount of net worth, or having a certain amount of assets, or having, whatever it is whatever your financial metric is that you're kind of measuring to equate to success for you in your life, I think it's important to understand that you can't look at money as a destination, because no matter what, if you do, you're probably not going to be fulfilled when you get there, A. And B, you're also, if money is the destination, you're also far less likely to actually reaching the destination, because let's face it, it's just not inspiring, right? Like, it's just like, there's a lot to it, but the way I look at it is what I teach. I'd love to hear your insight after, is that money is just a tool to create a life that matters. And what we have to do first and foremost is decide, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for you? What does that mean? Everybody has to make that decision for themselves. And it's, and by the way, I've shifted. This is, and if you've watched my content, I've shifted from create a life that you want to live to create a life that matters. Because my wife and I were talking about this, and it's like, creating a life that you want to live is still kind of a selfish, self-centered focus, right? Creating a life that you want to live, right? If I say, use money as a tool to create the life that you want to live, that doesn't, some people will mean, well, I want to live a life that matters, but not everybody wants to live a life that matters, And so I would just say, sure, you can use money as a tool to create a life that you want to live, but I want to work with people and help and coach people that want to live a life that matters, right? So I've shifted my vernacular around that whole idea, and I think it goes back to Simon Sinek's golden circle of the what, how, and why, and we got to start with why, and reverse engineering it from a place of like, all right, what do I want my life to be about? What matters to me? And then, how do I use money as a tool to actually execute, implement, and actualize? That's really what it comes down to. So what say you?
Man, well, first of all, I love the concept of what you just shared, and what you and Hannah were talking about. Because when you're only considering yourself, you're only thinking about what matters to you, or a life you'd love to live, doesn't necessarily take in consideration how you can add value to other people so that they love the life they live too. Yeah. And I think one of the bridges to that gap is exactly what we just were talking about. So in our process, overall, considering working with the end in mind and reverse engineering, a lot of what is present to me as we talk about this are the foundations. So the foundations of our personal values. What is it that actually is important to us, as opposed to the injected concepts that society, family, friends have provided to us, even employers, our bosses, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then when we talk about destination, we had shared the concept around goals. Goals are in time and space with a destination.
Yep.
And I know for myself, I'm guilty that I had goals for financial achievement. And when I reached those goals, I'm sitting there wondering, is this it? Is this all I was hoping to achieve? The money actually wasn't fulfilling at all. And then I had to sit and ponder what went wrong during that process in those times and those years. And so what also happens with wealth and accumulation, I think as I continue to work with more and more folks that have high net worths, but low self-worths, it really becomes evident to me that the money simply is just a tool, and there hasn't been a purpose beyond that money that people have found in their life. They expect it to come one day, but with no vision, with no foresight, with no real purpose behind their actions, they're left unfulfilled and wondering, man, what did I do all this work to accumulate all this money to not even know what I'm doing, to live in fear of the market, fear of what happens if somebody wants to, be a predator towards me and take what I've built. All of these different concepts that run their world and prevent them from living the life they'd love to live, and a life that they don't even know the answer to what your question was. How does my life matter? And when they don't even understand what that means, when someone hasn't created that meaning, then it's just a lost vision, and ultimately ends up being in this kind of like, my experience has been watching people at the end, especially of their lives, wonder, man, what did I do? Where did I miss the mark? And I think that's the most troublesome thing for me as an advisor, was helping people find their financial pinnacle, so to speak, but not have fulfillment, which is why our whole Pluton process exists.
I love that, man. I'll say this and you hit the nail on the head, is like, a lot of the reasons that I've started shifting, and if you watch my content from say 8 years ago, 9 years ago, it was wildly different, because I was a different person. I was at a different level of success, a different level of freedom and sovereignty, for myself in my own life. And obviously with different levels of success, ironically, it was my wife and some of her experiences that really spoke into us, kind of what you were just talking about, in the sense that, like, so I'll just give an example. She won Mrs. American in 2021, right? And so it's interesting, and it speaks to this, right? It's like, a lot of times people go out and they shoot for these big goals for a long period of time. And for her, it was winning a national pageant title that she had wanted to do. She felt called to do it. It was in her heart. She felt like it was like just something that was going to happen. And she didn't know how to describe it, but she felt for all those years that it was going to happen. And finally, 24 years in, granted, she didn't compete every year. I don't want to make it sound like that, but out of the 24 years, she probably competed 8 out of the 24 years. But in the years that she wasn't competing, she was still thinking about it. She was still emotionally connected to the result, right? Connected to the destination, right?
The identity, perhaps, too, right?
The identity, totally. The identity, the destination, the idea of what it would mean to be a pageant queen, right? To be a national title holder in that world. And, that's not to take away from the fact that she has a huge heart, that she wants to serve, that, there's all the positive things that go along with it. There's no doubt. But the problem was the fact that goal was the destination, and then she got there and it wasn't what she thought it would be. And it didn't. It was interesting. She won the pageant title, and I remember laying in bed with her, the next night. And, there's that moment of excitement, of course, when you win something like that. But very, very quickly, that feeling wears off. And then you're like, well, now what? I'm still the same person. I still have all this stuff. And then what happens is, because your life doesn't really change all that much, you still are who you are. You still have the same struggles. You still have the same internal limiting beliefs. You still have the same self-doubts. You still have your humanness. And that's just the way it goes, right? And so then you start to question, well, what was I even working towards? And was it really worth my life's energy to put towards achieving this set goal, right? And I'm not saying it is or isn't, and I'm not saying going for a thing like a pageant title in her way or for any other goal. I'm not saying that there's not nobility in that, and that you can't make wild impact, and that there's not a lot of positive things that can be done through those endeavors. What I am saying, though, is that the end destination, right? So I'm going to equate now that winning a national pageant title for my wife to becoming a multi-millionaire, right? And being financially free. It's like, can you get there? Sure, you can get there, but your mindset and the energy that you put into it, and just, I think energetically, and I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole, like on controlling our energy and our consciousness and utilizing money, not to just create a life that matters, but how that impacts how we show up in the world, and how we are energetically, and how that impacts our physiology, and how that, all the things, right? Like, because I think there's a lot to that. But I do believe that what ironically wound up getting her to win a title was the fact that she disconnected from the result right at the kind of like the 11th hour, so to speak. And she was able to disconnect from winning, and it wasn't about winning. And ironically, when it didn't matter to her if she won or not, it's when she won. But then when she won, she started questioning, was it worth the 24-year effort, And then there was work to do after the fact to figure out, all right, where can I create the value? How do I find myself through this whole process and create that alignment? You know what I mean? And so I think that's it. And I know you and I've talked about this a lot, but I think for me, that's it. When we talk about people struggle with money because their money is not in alignment with their values and beliefs, the question is, how do we create that alignment? Because I think that's really what life is all about. Whether we're talking how you show up as a husband, how you show up as a father, how you show up as a business partner, how you show up as an influencer and a thought leader and an educator, how you show up as a man, how you in any capacity, however you show up, it's a matter of like, how do you create alignment? Because the problem that I have is people that say, oh, and I've had business partners like this. I've had clients that I've worked with like this that go out and profess themselves to be like super devout, spiritual people, Christians, other spiritual practices, whatever. And then when we get into business and when we get into, just money, they go, oh no, it's different with this. Like almost like there's a different set of rules when it comes to like how we handle business and money. And I'm all of a sudden my spiritual principles don't matter. And, I would say that if you really want to live a fulfilled life that you truly matters inside, you have to create that alignment. I mean, that is the key.
Undoubtedly. And a lot of what we just talked about is the type of experience that I think every athlete goes through, right? The athlete mindset of purpose, of what it is you're working so diligently hard for. The work I've done with different sports teams in terms of exactly that. How do we create alignment with our values so that the results are not what our purpose is? We're trusting the process to create an outcome, and that outcome is not attached to winning or losing, although we know there's always going to be that result, especially in a zero-sum game, right? So when we talk about the economy, the way that marketing, the way that society has created zero-sum games across every part of what it is we do, and then we think about how we can create that wealth, going back to the idea of what's the destination. If money is the destination, then the lack of fulfillment is going to be ever present in someone's life, because that money is going to help a situation grow where they're not surrounded by the people that matter most to them, right? The company that we keep matters so much. And then those interactions, the relationship capital, not just with other people, but with ourselves, I think first and foremost, because when you talk about how you show up, that really is a check-in on a daily basis about your relationship capital with yourself and how you feel about what it is you're doing. And when we talk about growing and keeping wealth, I think a lot of times people talk about making more money, but they don't necessarily talk about increasing their lifestyle. Now, the idea they have is that when I have more money, I can increase my lifestyle. But then what? Then what happens when you get to that point? And then what happens when you get to that point? What's possible for your life after that? If all it's ever about is increasing your lifestyle or your standard of living, then what ends up happening every time that I've really been able to experience it is that you miss out on that purpose. And it becomes a rat race in a different form where all you're doing is chasing a dollar. And when you talk about financial freedom, how financially free can you be with millions of dollars if you can't maintain your lifestyle if you don't work?
Well,
and so that's not true financial freedom.
Totally. Well, let's talk about it. Like, do you want financial freedom or do you want freedom? Right. So, and what does that mean? Right. Like, what does freedom mean?
Well, and then you have the opposite side of the spectrum. I'm spiritually free, but I'm broke and I can't do anything I want.
For sure. So, but let's have the conversation about what does actual freedom look like, you know? And I know you and I have talked about this, so I'm just like teeing it up for you, you know, but like, what does freedom look like? You know, everybody kind of puts this idea out there that they want financial freedom, and all the influencers are out there talking about how to reach financial freedom and passive income and all this stuff. But they're, you know, reaching financial freedom doesn't mean you're free. I know plenty of people that have reached retirement, which, you know, they have a pension and they have retirement accounts and they technically are financially free, but then they're riddled with sickness and pancreatic cancer, and they, you know, 4 months into retirement, when they reach freedom, they're dead. You know, like, this happens. And so, yeah, for you, like, how would you define? I know what I do, and I'll talk about mine after, but I want to let you talk first this time.
Yeah, I think freedom in its ultimate form is the ability to create a transformative life for yourself, where your understanding of who you are, what you stand for, what you stand against, is so crystal clear to you that any outside influences, any outside noise about criticisms, judgments, what you could do, should do, need to do, really doesn't end up mattering, because you're so crystal clear on who it is you are and what you want to create, that as long as that creation is within, you know, the concept of adding value and making those lives around you better, every person that you can reach to a degree that's higher of awareness, of health, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, then you can operate in a place where you're free. And then money is the tool that allows you to experience life and the things that the beautiful world has to offer in a limitless way. And when you can align both of those things and have both of that, is truly when I've met people with the most fulfilled lives, right? And so if we talk about fulfillment is the process of filling the voids in our life. So the more voids you have, or not even the more, but the voids you have in life come our values, right? So you might consider someone that grew up with no money. They might consider, okay, well, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to have money. But what they miss out in that process are all the other things they didn't focus on, because they thought money was the thing that was missing from their good life.
100%.
And so the more voids we fill, the more fulfilled we become. And if the pursuit of our life is more about fulfillment and not about happiness, then we actually end up with the results that we might set out for. See, happiness is an emotion. It's fleeting. It comes and goes. And we know that if we ever seek out something, we're going to always experience the opposite, polarity. Now we talk about happiness up here. Well, what are you going to experience if you're always searching for happiness? Is sadness. And so being able to understand where the push and pull is, and know that life is going to throw financial surprises at us. Not life is going to throw emotional surprises at us. You know, social structures at us that are going to throw us off. How we respond to those things is going to ultimately define what we do. And the truth is that our legacy and our purpose won't even actually be known during our lifetime. And that was the switch for me that really changed everything, was saying, I'm never actually going to see the results of my life. I'm not going to see them. The true depth of my impact won't actually be seen until beyond my time. And that changed my ability to function in a free way.
That's awesome. So I don't know if you know this, but Hannah and I are launching a new podcast called Thrive Pod.
Okay.
And so we're launching the new podcast, and it's something that she wanted to do. And I'm all on board with her to do it. And it's all about helping people heal, grow, and thrive. And it's one of those things where I love it, because it's another avenue for me to like share another side of myself. Whereas, you know, she wanted a platform to be able to speak because, you know, she's just so capable and I think has so much to add to the world. And she just didn't have a platform. And I thought it would be cool for us to be able to do it together. The interesting part, I don't know, the interesting part for me in this whole process is like in going down this, one of the things I asked her the other day was, if you were to die tomorrow, she was like, and she was coming into challenges trying to figure out what content she could create. And she gets very heady, right? Like, and she just does. And like, let's face it, most of us do from time to time. And she was just in this moment, she was pretty heady about like, what do I want to create? How do I add value? And I go like, stop, babe, just stop thinking about it. Like, let me ask you a question. If you were to die tomorrow, what are the bits of knowledge, the pieces of your consciousness, the little nuggets of wisdom and love and inspiration and whatever that you'd be able to leave for the kids, right? That would die with you, that are unsaid. I said, why don't you stop trying to make content to serve everybody else and just start making content that is what like
on your heart?
Yeah, just like literally make your stamp and do it for yourself and do it for your kids and do it for your family. And I promise you, that's going to be what actually connects with people more. You know what I mean? And so it's interesting because we're in the life insurance business, right? And we help people financially in a lot of different ways, but life insurance, because of our core beliefs and because of the attributes it does, it's a tool that we both believe in very strongly. And you and I, that is. And so I started thinking about, I was like, well, crap, I haven't done that. I just told her she needs to go do that. And I'm like, I haven't done that. You know what I mean? Like, I need to go do that. So like, that's next on my list. But like, it's really interesting when you start looking at it through that lens, you start to realize the money isn't really what matters at all. And now I will say that we need a certain amount of money, right? Like there is a baseline that we need to steward and be able to have that freedom-ish, right? The like enough cash flow to be able to navigate effectively. But it's interesting. I live down here in the Caribbean, right? And living down here in the Dominican Republic, I can live for a fraction of what it costs to live in the United States. That's first and foremost. So being down here, what's really been cool to see, to witness, to be in just the presence of constantly is just the wild range of people who have wildly different levels of success, and they all have the goal of living a life of an adventure and freedom and whatever. But the bottom line is some people get to the place where they come rolling in on a $20 million yacht, to the marina where I live, the yacht club where we live. And some people like literally are backpacking, living in hostels and doing their thing and coming through and living on $1,000 a month. And so the bottom line is it's just a matter of figuring out what is that life that you want to live and what do you want your life to be about at the end of the day, what really matters to you, and how do you utilize money as a tool to create the adventure, to create the experience, to create the impact, to create the influence, to create, that ripple effect, I guess, is really what it comes down to at the end of the day.
I was going to say, it's all about the ripple, right?
Yeah.
Who wants to be the richest person in the cemetery? The Egyptians tried and they got robbed, right? After death.
Yeah.
So it's like, what is it that it's all for? And one thing that's interesting about the way that self-worth coordinates a little bit with overall worth when it comes to purpose and goals is you'll find folks like I know multiple people make high incomes every year, million, 5 million, 10 million. What's the reason that they stay at that 10 million? Why isn't it they're not growing, or they only grow at the rate of inflation, their income? It's because they don't have a purpose for it. Yep. And it's not a matter of like, oh, well, they don't need more money. Of course they don't need more money. Most of us don't need, like most of us at a point where it's like, what do we want to accomplish may not need more money to live, right. But what is the life that we want to create with it? Because you talk about someone maybe makes $50,000 a year. Over 20 years, they're going to have $1 million come through their life.
Yep.
At the end of that 20 years, what do they have to show for it? That becomes a difference when it comes to finances. But what happens with folks that don't have something beyond themselves that they're growing for, a value beyond themselves, is that 10 million stops at 10 million. Right. And so then it's like, okay, well, where can you actually add value to an ever-growing number of people to continue to add an ever-growing degree of value so that ultimately we understand that as a tool, money always follows value. So if you're always serving without any expectation of anything in return, which is actually truly giving, right? Giving is not with an ultimatum or an exchange of anything other than this is what I want to do to serve. And when you do that is when I see people's opportunities continue to just exponentiate. I mean, if you look at all the billionaires, regardless of what you may think of them as people, they've added a tremendous amount of value at an ever increasing degree, which is why they continue to have those abilities. And ultimately, think about Jeff Bezos. I got something yesterday, actually, I was thinking about it. So, it's really incredible. I ordered something on a Sunday at 9 a.m. and it was at my house at noon. When I was a little kid, I used to dream about that. And now you got people that are criticizing it because he gets all this money. It's like he hacked the answer. He got the answer for us. You know, and you get stuff from there, over in DR from Amazon. And we talked about that. And it's just an amazing concept that when people, I think, are criticizing that, not only is it coming out of scarcity, but it's also coming out of self-judgment.
Yeah.
And that self-judgment of like what I haven't done. Ultimately they don't want to say that, but it reflects in how they speak about other people because they're not satisfied with themselves. And we talk about emotions and you talked about the illness being an individual with the universe, wellness being together with the universe. And we think about the things that ultimately come into play is like, how is it that somebody's aligned with the things that they care most about in life? What is it that they're doing? And the top two emotional reasons why people don't achieve their financial abundance.
Yeah.
It's because of guilt and shame. Guilt being the feeling of letting somebody else down, and shame being the idea that you let yourself down. And so those two things compounded are almost an impossible feat to overcome until you can release those things and truly understand the purpose behind the pain. And that's when people can make progress.
That's awesome. So we're coming up on time here, but and I want to kind of like land the plane with this a little bit. One of the things that I don't know why it came into my mind as you were talking about money and money being the destination and what is the value, like what is our life about? And, there's all these phrases and concepts that you can't take money with you. And when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to care how much money you have. All you're going to care about is the relationships and the love and the, all that stuff. And that's all true. Okay. But like, I don't really care to be a Hallmark card at this point in time. But what came through my mind when you were talking about that was Warren Buffett, right? And you mentioned Jeff Bezos, and I think Warren Buffett came into my mind. And the thing about Warren Buffett that really got me to think of is if I could trade places with Warren Buffett right now, would I? The answer is no. Why is that? Because Warren Buffett is what, 90 years old, 92 years old, something like that. I mean, he's old, right? And he's old and he doesn't have much life left, right? And so money isn't as valuable as your life, as what you are here to do. And so I don't think you're going to find any healthy 45-year-old on the planet that would be willing to just trade places with Warren Buffett.
Well, you bring up the idea of like, hey, if I could give you $1 million, would you take it? Yeah, but if you knew you're dying tomorrow, which one would you take? And of course, you don't take the $1 million.
No, of course not, right? And now we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars with Warren Buffett. Yeah. And I would venture to say that we could all probably say within a actuarial outlook, I'm no actuary, but my guess is Warren Buffett's not going to be around more than 5-6 more years, with his life expectancy. Maybe he can, whatever, but his business partner, Charlie Munger, just died, a couple of years ago or a year and a half ago or whatever, right? So this is all happening, right? Maybe I should use Charlie Munger, if as the example, because I'm not wishing, Warren Buffett anything, but a long, happy life. But the bottom line is, let's flip it around. If Warren Buffett had the ability to switch with me or you, how much would he, where we are right now in life and where he is, what would he pay to do it? And my guess is he'd be willing to pay a vast amount of his fortune to be able to come back and buy years of his life back.
Well, and I'm giddy about responding to this because there's a couple things. First of all, I can almost guarantee you that if he got to keep his intellectual mental capital, his intellectual property,
he'd give his whole net worth up.
Yeah, because he could redo it again. He could recreate it because of what he knows. And not only that, there's something hugely important about this. We talked about retirement and getting to the point where now you're retired and you're sick, and wellness and illness.
Yeah.
What happens when people lose purpose, especially after retirement? They don't have the socialization. They don't have the habits. They don't have the things they love to do. Well, they die, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, well-being. And one thing that I think I admire and that I seek is doing something you love so much that money's not the purpose. And that's where Warren Buffett's at. He's not working because he has to. He does what he loves. And, you know, he read every financial book that the Library of Omaha had when he was a kid. I think by the time he was 12 or 14. And he grew up to do everything he ever set out to do and more. And he continues to impact people's lives to a huge degree, right? I think we all would love to have that type of impact in our life, but what are we willing to do to get it, right? And there's a big difference from that. And I think on the flip side, yes, he's old, but one thing that happens is, from a standpoint of health, is when you do what you love, you live longer. And when you do it with the people that you love, you don't create illness in yourself. And it's the guilt, the shame, the blame, the internal hatred, the ultimately looking at other people with an envious eye that creates that type of illness inside of our bodies. And of course, that'll be a time for us to talk about something a whole nother hour.
That'll be one of the next few videos.
But on a cellular level, to be able to create wellness in our bodies, I mean, who knows? Warren Buffett, from a statistical perspective, probably should have already died, but he also might have 10 more years because of
he could.
All because he loves what he does. He wakes up every day with purpose, and his purpose is to be able to continue to use his mind and stay acute and be able to influence people in a positive way. So
love it.
What an opportunity to do that.
Love it, man. Well, guys, I tell you what, this has been a fun conversation for me. Pete, thanks for being here, man.
A pleasure.
If you guys found value in this, please comment in the comment sections below. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe at the bell, that way you're notified every time we launch a new video. Pete and I are going to be doing videos like this on a pretty regular basis. So I'm excited about that. So I really encourage you, if you're on the Life 180 channel, make sure you go over and check out his YouTube channel as well. It's growing pretty well. And I'm going to put the link down in the description below. Check that out. And that is it. Until next video, have a blessed, inspirational day. Let us know if you need anything. We'll talk soon. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Chris.